Hi, good evening. This is Rob Bell, and you're watching Getting the Record Straight. This is our Truth to Power segment. As you know, we do, or I do rather, a arts and music segment also. But we're going to talk about what's going on politically and in terms of social justice right now. I had some things in mind that I was going to go over, but just so much is happening and so much is happening quickly. It's really pretty crazy. I know last show, in the Truth to Power segment, I was talking about um, kind of the state of black leadership. I was just getting into that and talking about Jim Clyburn, who's the congressman from South Carolina, and kind of got the ball rolling for Joe Biden, former Vice President Joe Biden, to become the nominee for the Democratic Party. And I am going to get back to that at some point, but just so much is going on relative to this coronavirus, and I hope everyone is, taking precautions. I had to be out today. I just have to work and, survive. But I am trying to do the best I can to stay away from crowds and that kind of thing. So, um, again, doing what I have to do and what I can do. But anyway, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about relative to uh, this virus thing and what it means, not only in particular, but some of the broader implications of it. And so I want to do that for a few minutes today, and we may even continue that going forward a little bit before we get back into kind of the black political leadership thing, because I think all of it's important. But anyway, so there's two things that really are jumping out to me that kind of give some broader context to this coronavirus thing. And one is the general situation that affects all of us and affects the country and indeed the world. So it's this kind of general overarching concern and issue that I have. And then secondly is how it affects and what it says and brings to light about black political leadership. And so I'll get back to that, the latter one, when I come back to talking about black political leadership, which I don't know if I'll do that next time, but probably the time after that, the show after the next one. But in terms of this general um, situation and this coronavirus, it is obviously brought to bear some things, some shortcomings and limitations. Obviously, with this president and the nutcase that he is, but also, Trump couldn't do what he does and be as effective in some areas, all of which are undermining us, without and ineffective in other areas without the support of his colleagues in the Republican Party and Mitch McConnell and them, and many on the corporate Democratic conservative side. Like I've said a number of times, we have a Democratic right wing, and as you know, all of Bush's virtually all of his appointments to the judiciary have just not gone through but flown through. And he really hasn't had much resistance in terms of his budget. And, we're still spending incredible amounts of money on the military. That's something that I'll kind of harp on at a later date more also. But anyway, um, so we've had this situation now, and just recently, within the past couple of days, um, people have begun to offer not solutions, but some interventions, if you will, with respect to this virus and the economic impact it's having and that kind of thing. And what happened yesterday and I've been watching a number of reports. And just as an aside, I'm not. I didn't even turn the mainstream television on today, so I didn't see any. Everything I'm talking about are from, online sources that I like to go to. One of which, and I'm going to really actually get into this a lot more, because I really do like the people who, and particularly, what's her last name is Ball. I'm trying to think of her first, but it'll come to me. Crystal Ball, uh, and the show that they do, and they bring out a lot of, I think, interesting points and do some really good journalistic work. And so I want to talk about their response in particular to what's been going on. And one of the things they pointed out, as did others, is that the corporate Democrats, Nancy Pelosi and others, have allowed themselves to be outflanked on the left by right-wing Republicans, and in terms of responding to this pandemic. So we have Mitt Romney yesterday basically stealing Andrew Yang's idea of a UBI, benefit for everyone, and talking about sending out $1,000. Tulsi Gabbard had even suggested that before that, but of course Andrew Yang was the, if you will, the creator of that notion, of that strategy. And so now Mitt Romney has come with that, and I'm almost sure that, or I've seen several reports saying that Trump is now going to issue a directive similar to that. Bernie Sanders has, in my estimation, I think all of the reports that I trust in somewhat, and again, I'm not talking about mainstream media, but I think Bernie has probably the most comprehensive response, where he's talking about $2,000 and a litany of other interventions and supports, that all of which are needed and make a lot of sense. But what the Democratic House has come up with, from what I understand, I have to refer to my notes for that, is the House bill was supposed to be given 2 weeks paid leave, I believe, and but the actual bill, or what they've agreed to thus far, really only speaks to or addresses 20% of workers, and large businesses are being completely exempted. And we've already seen that Trump has had the major business leaders in and made kind of deals with them to address their concerns. And then, and so the Democrats supposedly offering, a more holistic and a response, and something that should benefit workers and poor folks, and people who are really at risk. And basically, they come up with a very, very lax, flaccid response. And then what happens? Romney and now Trump are, as I said, outflanking them on the left and coming up with some things in terms of cash in hand and other supports, from what I understand, that are really, could really help people. And Pelosi, and we haven't really heard of anything substantive from Biden. But anyway, they're like stuck with their feet in the sand. So going beyond that criticism of them, though, I want to get back to Crystal Ball, and she has a show called Rising. And as I said, it's really good. She used to be a commentator on MSNBC. They ended up letting her go because she was too progressive, as MSNBC has gotten rid of Dave Schultz. Well, of course, he passed away too, but several commentators, especially those who had an issue with the United States and its hunger for war and its endless wars. Another thing which we will spend a considerable amount of time talking about. But at any rate, her and her colleague, who evidently is a Republican, but if there is such a thing, a moderate Republican, and I don't want to try to pronounce his last name, but his first name is Sager. And so he and Crystal Ball were bringing to light the differences between the Republicans. Not all of them, be mindful. The majority of them were still themselves stuck in the mud, and of course didn't want to give anything away. But in fact, between Romney and then Trump, they had gone around the corporate Democrats who were still, going nowhere in terms of offering solutions that would help people right now. And so Crystal Ball and this other gentleman, Sager, were basically making this point. And I think it was a valid point. But what really stuck with me, and what I want to talk about just for a couple of minutes, and leading into the next time we do this, is that the guy Sager, this Republican, was really taking issue with China and saying that that Trump, using this term, the China virus, the guy Sager was saying that people who had a problem with that were disingenuous. And the long short was that it wasn't the point that they were using the China moniker and that would influence people to, somehow come out and hurt Asian folks and that kind of thing. But rather, it took the focus off of China and what they were doing in terms of this virus and spreading the virus, and that it was created in China and it came from China, and that they covered it up for months without. And Crystal Ball basically took a similar, she was like, I don't think we ought to use that term. That's where she was coming from. But she basically agreed with him that, it's all China's fault. They're at the, they created this virus, and it came from Wuhan, I think is the name of the place. And what I wanted to talk about a little bit, get into it some more, I think, the next time, because I don't have a lot of time left, is simply this idea that the United States is beyond using chemical or biological weapons, or that it may have been, perhaps even an accident kind of thing, because there were these military drills that were done in or around that area with United States troops, Chinese and United States troops. And something could have happened. And this idea that this guy Sager was taking, that, the United States is somehow morally above that, is just so ridiculous, and is particularly disingenuous in my mind right now, where the world is dealing with this incredible virus and pandemic. And the one thing that Republicans and Democrats in the Capitol can agree on is keeping the wars going, and also sanctioning countries, particularly Iran, but also Nicaragua and also Venezuela. And in a situation like this, it's like, what could be more evil than that? And with that said, I've got to sign off and keep it moving, but we'll continue next time. Thank you.